Thank you for being here with me and welcome back. My name is Catherine Daniels, and I love to empower people with spiritual healing and wellness. The best thing about Retreat to Peace is the gift of inner peace, greater love, and joy. And during these times of changes and uncertainty in our world, nothing is permanent except our souls. That's why we need to come together as we travel through one another's countries, creating a bridge, removing all labels as we come together as one people, finding our home in one world. And that is why our signature talk today is so important. Today, I have the honor of welcoming my guest, Desiree Young. Hi, Desiree.
Hi.
How are you today?
I am really good, thank you. How are you?
I am so grateful. Just grateful. That is the best word I can put on it. I'm grateful to have you with us. I know my audience will definitely have a lot to learn from you because you come with such amazing gifts and love and light to share with the world. So thank you so much for being here. Like I said, I'm just very, very grateful. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I live alone and I have a cat. My 9 to 5 job is selling insurance. My side job is writing. I lead a writers group and I also write on my own as well, just various different mediums, poetry, songs, books, etc. The purpose of my writing is sometimes to entertain people, but usually to help them overcome something that they may be struggling with. Some of my books have been memoirs and just talking about different struggles that I've had with my own mental and emotional well-being, but also learning how to find God in the midst of all of my struggles. And I try to convey that to readers as well so that they can see that in their own struggles. In my spare time, I like watching movies with my cat. I also really love hiking. I'm so excited it is spring now because it is nice to go hiking. Like, you can go hiking in winter, but it's cold. And we'd all rather be inside. I like looking for sea glass along the shores of Lake Michigan. I like spending time with my loved ones. And I absolutely love superheroes, DC and Marvel. They are both good. Yeah, that's a bit about me.
I think that's all amazing. And you're so right. Hiking in winter is hard. It's not easy. So I definitely agree with that statement. And I myself love to be in the woods. I love to be out in Mother Nature and just taking it all in. And I think the hiking in the spring and hiking in the fall is the absolute best. Like, there's just so much to take in both seasons. The summer is not a bad season either, but it's just not the same. You know, it's like the spring and the summer, the spring is just filled with awakening, and the fall, we're going through the changes. So it's just really a beautiful time to be outdoors and embracing all of that. One of the things that you said that I really love is that you spend your free time writing. And on the show, we talk about that because writing is actually a really great way to release stress from the body and get it out. They've done studies on pregnant women that have been in adversity. So if they were in a situation where they experienced a typhoon or an earthquake or something like that, the women that journaled that trauma out of their body actually had healthy babies and everything seemed to be okay. And the women that did not do that, they did have more complications either with their pregnancy or with their newborn baby. So I'm a huge, huge advocate of releasing with writing. I have a prayer journal. I write in that every day. And yeah, so it's a big deal. So I love your whole thing about helping people how to find God. I would love to dive into that topic with you. So how did you get into that topic?
I got into that topic from my own journey. So growing up, I saw my parents through 4 divorces. So growing up in multiple homes, that was that was the norm for me. It was not something that I particularly enjoyed. And through the different phases of being raised by different parents, there are some parents that are loving and nurturing and encouraging, and there's some parents that are very strict and success driven. So much so that I developed a perfectionistic mindset and personality. I became very anxious and was finding my worth in getting things done and accomplished, and having a job well done, as opposed to having an identity of knowing that I am someone who is loved and pursued by God. Relating to God as a father was very hard for me because my own relationships with my dads were very broken. And with one of my dads, one of those relationships has been redeemed and it's much better now. The other one, we're still praying, we're still hoping. But a lot of me coming to know God was me having to unlearn what my expectations of him were going to be. My expectations of him were, okay, he's someone who's going to be very hard on me. He's someone who's going to be very strict with me. He is someone who I heard, hey, Jesus loves you. And somewhere in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I believe that. But in my heart, I was like, but does he though? Because I have this wrong with me. I have this wrong with me. I have these imperfections, those imperfections. I can't seem to fix this. I'm struggling with an addiction. Does he though? It was very hard for me to grasp and understand. So God, in his grace and his mercy, took me on a journey of discovering what his love was truly like, and discovering who he is as a father, and learning to disconnect my earthly representation of a father from who he is as a heavenly father. Because as a heavenly father, he is all encompassing. He is loving. He is someone who will cheer you on and won't say, all right, good job. Now, next time you're going to do better, right? Next time you're going to do this. He's like, yes, that's awesome. That is great. Way to go. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. He is someone who, yes, he is going to challenge you because he knows exactly what you're made of and who he made you to be, but not in a way where you're defeated, so to speak. Yeah, me learning that, it took several years, and I want to help collapse that time for other people. I want to help them see, hey, even though you have these life circumstances, here is God in the midst of those circumstances. He is the strong rock that you can stand on. He is steady throughout any storm, and he is your safe harbor. He is your peace. He is your joy. He is the one holding you when you are lying in bed crying, not knowing, when is this going to end? When am I going to see, the happy part of it? When am I going to get to the light at the end of the tunnel? He is there with you every single step of the way. And we live unfortunately, in a world where fathers are not always present, whether it's physically present or emotionally present. So helping people realize hey, God is the perfect father. There are letters that I write sometimes called A Letter from Abba, and I'll include those in my writings to help people hear him and see him in the midst of whatever storm it is that they're going through.
That is incredible. And there's so many people that I feel need to hear the deeper dive of this, because I feel like there's a lot you're not saying at the same time. So would that be true?
You can get the deep dive too.
Yeah, because I'm hearing your surface level stuff, but I'm totally picking up that there's a lot more going on here than what you're saying. So, all right, so let's go back to the shore, and we're going to start picking up the sea glass, and we're going to take this deeper dive. So, did I hear this right? You had 4 divorces that your parents went through. Okay, so that alone is a heavy, heavy burden for a young person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot. And
Is
Uh,
this where this started for you, or did it start even way before any of that?
um, so when what started for me?
The journey of God.
So my mom is a very strong believer and raised my brother and I going to church. And so from a young age, I was, read my Bible and had an understanding of God. And I, said a salvation prayer when I was in children's church. It's probably 8 years old, younger than that. When I was in high school, about 16 years old, I learned the difference between having God in your life as like your religion, your, normal, this is what I do on Sunday mornings, and then that's about it, versus having a relationship with God. The relationship with God, you don't just interact with Him on Sunday mornings. You're reading your Bible throughout the week. You are worshiping throughout the week. You are praying and talking with Him throughout the week. So I started to do that a bit more. And the more I did that, the more I realized it was like, I don't know much about this God character that I've been supposedly learning about for the last 16 years. So I wanted to know more about him, and I wanted to go even deeper into my relationship with him. So I started reading my Bible more, and the more I read, the more I was understanding him as God who is Lord. Um, God who is Father, that one is very tricky. Like I heard Father God, talked about a lot. And when I was a freshman in college was when I started to do my deep dive into like learning more about the love of God and how that started. There was I went with my stepdad to Barnes and Noble. Yeah, Barnes and Noble. And there was this book that I saw, and it was titled His Princess Bride Love Letters from Your Prince. And I picked it up and read the back cover. And the back cover explained that this book was a collection of letters from God the Father, God the Groom, to us, his bride. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I read the first letter inside, and I was getting teary eyed. And I was like, I need this book. So my dad bought it for me, and I started going through the book, and I treated it like a devotional. I read 2 pages each day. The first page was the letter. Second page was the response from the bride to the groom. And as I was going through those, I started to see like this is what God really thinks of me. He says that I am loved. He says that I am treasured. He says that I am His and that He is mine. And the more I started to read that, the more I started to soften and realize it's like, oh, there's a true depth to the love of God that I did not realize because He's actually very personable. He's not just this figure in the sky. He's someone who wants to know you on an intimate level, like a friend would. And I continued to go through this devotional. And one of my mentors in college, uh, her favorite book of the Bible is Song of Solomon, because she reads it as an allegory of Christ's love for the church. And she's like, hey, in our time together, I would really like to study Song of Solomon with you. So she and I did an in-depth Mike Bickle study. And when I tell you it was an in-depth study, I'm telling you that she and I met probably for like 4 weeks, and we were still in chapter 1, going through all of the different verses and the meanings. And it was mind blowing to me, just like how watching the bride transition from someone who did not see herself as worthy of love, or someone who was very dark and mistreated by other people around her, to realizing like, hey, my groom loves me. My groom is mine. I am his. This is awesome. And seeing her evolution to say, like, I am his. That is my identity, and he is mine. And it was absolutely beautiful. So I had those two things that I was doing, and the final thing that really was like, I don't want to use the term nail in the coffin, but that's the only one coming to mind right now. Was spring semester of my sophomore year of college. And prior to my sophomore year, I remember thinking about, like dating and relationships, like I was very closed off to, dating and love and relationships because I did not have that great of an example of a successful relationship in my life. It was like, well, so love doesn't last. And if you let someone in, they're just going to hurt you. No, thank you. And I had kept people at arm's length at all times. And that was just not something that I was like wanting or interested in. That's not true. That was not something I was willing to put myself out there to have. That was something that I wanted, but I was very afraid. And because I was very afraid, I was like, no, thank you. And I remember going for walks, the summer before my sophomore year of college, and I was thinking about relationships. And I was thinking very specifically because um, we live in a very sex crazed culture. Like it is pervasive everywhere. And somehow I noticed, I won't say somehow, like I kind of noticed it a bit more like in college because everyone's like, yes, I'm on my own. I'm not with my parents, blah, 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 blah. And I had these questions about sex. Particularly, it was like I grew up in a church where it's like no sex before marriage. Don't do it. Absolutely not. If you have sex before you get married, you could get an STD, you could get pregnant, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. Not going to explore deeply into that because, as mentioned before, some intimacy issues I got to work out. But my main question in my head was, is there really a difference, like waiting until you're married versus not? Like, what is that main difference? Yes, I know the natural things like, oh, you could get pregnant, you could get STDs, and different things with that. But I never told anyone that I had this question. It just like existed in my head. And there were a few people I was like, maybe I could ask them, maybe not. I don't know. I kind of just kept going on through life there. And my sophomore year of college, spring semester, I remember going to our InterVarsity Christian Fellowships large group gathering. And InterVarsity is an international intercollegiate Christian organization. And at this large group gathering, there was a guest speaker. To this day, I do not remember what he was there to talk about. Like, I think he was there to talk about evangelism. I could be wrong. I truly don't know. What I remember is a 5-minute tangent that he went on. And in this 5-minute tangent, he's just like imploring the young people that are in his audience, like, hey, stay chaste, stay pure, like wait until your wedding night. And he continues like, look, I had sex before I was married. Then I, with my current wife, you wait until our wedding night. I think they did. I don't remember. But he said that he felt a difference. And it wasn't just because it was like a different person. He's like, he actually felt the like spiritual implication and like holiness of, a marital act versus when he did that premarital. And I was listening to him and I was like, that was a weird random tangent that he went on. I remembered it stuck with me, and I went back to my dorm and I remembered that was a question that I had that I never told anyone. The only person who knew that I had this question was God. And I was like, oh my goodness, you really do care, you really do love me. And I just wanted to like run through my like the halls of my dorm just shouting, Jesus loves me, Jesus loves me. He really does. Yeah, so that was the journey of like learning to see God as a father. Was learning about his love for me and learning that his love was very personal and very deep and very intimate. Yeah, that's how that started.
It's beautiful. And there's a lot of young people that, I mean, not just young people, I think it's all ages that really struggle with their relationship with God. They don't know how to get started. They're not sure what they believe or don't believe. They have a lot of questions. It's interesting because I was, as a little girl, I was surrounded by God every day and guided and, knew that I was fully protected and always had that, like every cell in my body knew I had that relationship. but I had no idea how to articulate it as I got older, because as I got older, I started to experience people who told me that what I had wasn't real because I didn't go to a church and I didn't have, the church building and all of the, indoctrinations that people would normally have. And I really challenged people with their thought process on that, because do you have to be in a building to have a relationship with God? That's my question. And I don't think that you do. I think anyone, anywhere, at any point, can make a personal decision to have that relationship with God. And I know that, you said that you had the upbringing, but like for someone like me, I didn't have that upbringing, but I had that relationship. So it's kind of interesting because I feel like a lot of people, they interject things into this and what it should or shouldn't look like for people. And even this platform, God is working through us. And somewhere somebody has questions, just like you did, that we're answering somehow, because we're being used to help, someone with their questions. And I think that's the beautiful thing about God, is that God is so much bigger than us and is so in awareness of what is ahead for all of us and is able to orchestrate things, perfectly, perfectly. We'll never have that ability. We'll never have that ability. But if you're seeking and you're asking questions and you're putting it out there that you need answers, the answers will come. Just like you shared, the answers will come. And I'm sure that's not the first time that happened for you.
No, there are other instances where God's been like, here's your here's your answer to your unspoken question. Um, yeah, it's God is really awesome.
Well, and I feel that when you're fully surrendered and you let everything go, that's when the real relationship begins. Because that's when your heart is open. That's when your soul is open, your mind, you're able to receive. And instead of shutting down and being afraid, because I feel like that's really what's behind a lot of people, and what stops them with having that relationship is fear, because they hear stories like yours or like mine, and they're not sure that they're real. They question it, right? Or they're afraid of it for themselves, or they'll put something in the way. It's like a limiting belief. If I put something in the way, then I don't have to address it or have that relationship. But I couldn't agree more with what you said about the father piece of it, because I feel that for women, that is a very big deal. I have had so many conversations on this show with women who have had an interesting dynamic relationship with their dads, and how one thing their dad said when they were 6 years old, 8 years old, whatever age, has stuck with them and changed the path of their life. And they had to learn how to undo that as they got older. But in the process, the interesting thing is that they also start to recognize that their father in heaven is really their true father, right? It's like this earthly father was gifted to them so they could be here. And sometimes they're not healthy for us, but the Father in heaven's always healthy for us because he has everything we need, like you said. I think that's difficult for a lot of women to absorb sometimes. Would you agree?
I think it's hard for both women and men to absorb that that God is a good father. He's the best father that we could ever want or need, and that he does truly care. And yeah, that I would agree with that. I think
You said something really powerful too, that fathers are not present in today's world. So a lot of fathers, it's interesting because a lot of fathers today, they feel they have to do things a certain way for their children and show up a certain way. And often that way comes in the form of money or providing, these earthly goods, material goods that people have. And it's almost like we've gotten away from what is really important. And I think that's where we were talking earlier about 2020. When everybody stops and they start looking at their families and they really start to recognize, you know what, maybe I don't know my family as deeply as I'd like to because I've been too busy running away from them, doing something because I thought that was more important. And I feel like 2020 was a gift for a lot of families because the families that did work on their relationships and strengthened it, they actually saw the gift in that. But then there's other people that didn't know what to do and they drove further into addictions or, whatever it was that their vice was so that they could avoid, right? Avoid what it was that they had in front of them. And when you have a parent that is avoidant and not present, I mean, that does do a lot of damage to a child. It just does because it makes them feel abandoned and there's a whole slew of things that happens to that child. But to your point, God's always there. He was there in the darkness. He's there in the light. He was there, when you were feeling those abandonment feelings. He was there in your joy. He's always there. And for you, when you came to this realization that your father is not these four fathers here on earth, right? What did that do for you and how did that change you?
that released me from some of the struggles I was having. So from late high school to that moment in my spring semester of sophomore year, I thought a lot about harming myself. I thought a lot about cutting my wrists and my arms. I was dealing with a lot of emotional baggage and pain, and I did not have a healthy outlet for it. And I didn't know how to deal with it because I got into a habit of just stuffing my emotions down and not really being upfront and talking about them. And when I had that moment where I realized, the depth of that love for me, I stopped wanting to harm myself. And that is something that has carried through for several years. There have only been like two times since then where like I was starting to think about self-harm again. I was in a really stressful, really bad work situation when I left that job. All was better. But yeah, it helped. It helped me stop identifying with the pain that I was feeling, and it helped me to start identifying myself, as the bride in Song of Solomon, as someone who is God's, who is treasured and loved. Um, yeah.
So you start to develop self-love for your body.
Correct.
Yes, and thank you for your courage to be able to speak this truth, because that's not easy. So I just want you to know, I do feel that. So I thank you for that, because I know that's not easy, and it's very courageous for you to come on and talk about this. What would you tell yourself if you could go back in those moments where you were doing this self-harm? What would you say to that person now?
Um, to the person who is thinking of harming themselves, I would just let them know that they are valued not for what they do, but for who they are, and to see themselves as someone who is valuable and worthy of love. Like, your worth isn't tied into what you do for other people. It is who you are. Like, God made you and said, "This is good. You are good," and that's enough. And it doesn't matter if someone else says that or not, because God says that, and that's the end all be all. Like, yes, we want our parent figures to say that. We want, our peers around us to say that. But at the end of the day, focus on the truth of what God says about you. You are loved. You are valuable. You are worthy, and you are enough.
It's so true. So, so true. So this writing experience that you've been doing about how to find God, what would you tell someone who is struggling with that question right now? How would you get them started?
I'll let them know that while they are in the midst of their struggle, that their struggle is not who they are, and their struggle is not the end all be all, and that it's a in the midst of your life. Think of your life as a book. Your book has several chapters in it, and there are some chapters that are really great and awesome. You want to show them off to everyone, and there are chapters that, let's just be honest, they suck. And you can't wait to get to the end of that. You're in the midst of a bad chapter, not in the midst of a bad book, not in the midst of a bad life. So I would just let them know that in the midst of this darkness that you're feeling, this despair and this hopelessness, know that you are not alone in that, and know that even Jesus had moments where he's like, "Hey, I'm struggling here right now, and I need some help." And know that there is a strength in you to move forward and get through this, but also know that there is a God. He is reaching out his hand, and he wants to wrap his arms around your shoulders and help you stand up. Um, so I would honestly encourage them to just take a moment, and if they're willing, like, hey, do you want to practice hearing from God? Because every single person can hear from God, whether they have been in church for 50 years or are 2 years old. I would talk to them about different ways to hear God. Sometimes it's different feelings and impressions. Other times it's an audible voice, or a vision, or a word of knowledge. Or sometimes it's another person coming and talking with us, and just ask them a question like, God, like, what do you think of me? How do you see me? And to write down that response, and then help them go from there. Like, okay, what can you take from that? He says he sees you as treasured. Awesome. What if you started calling yourself that every day? Like, hello, treasured. How are you? And just helping them get into that mindset, because oftentimes when things are bad, like, we can focus on all of the bad things. I'm thinking of Peter, and when he was called to get out of the boat and walk on the water, he sees Jesus and he's like, yes, okay, I can walk on water. But then he looks at the waves. He's like, oh, crap, waves. There are waves. There are waves. There are waves. And Jesus helps him out. helps them up. Um, but yeah, to help them focus, like, hey, here's Jesus, and you can do this. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I'm starting to go on a tangent now.
No, it's great because I feel that more people that hear this can really start to recognize that they have a choice that they can make to actually have a relationship. And I agree. Sometimes it's like you said, it's just getting quiet. Sometimes it's just listening. Sometimes it's just you're asking the question and you're not sure the answer, and it's presented to you in some way. Um, there's so many beautiful moments that happen every single day to every single person that if you're in awareness and you have this awareness, you'll recognize it for what it is, right? You'll recognize that God is working through other people to be part of your life, to direct your steps and to help you. And then there's other people who they'll second guess it and they'll say, well, no, that's just a coincidence, or that wasn't meant for me. But what if it actually was? Because I personally don't believe in coincidence. I feel that everything happens for a reason. And I have so many stories where God has used me, for example, to be in service for someone in need. And I had no idea. I was being guided. I went with the steps of where I was supposed to go. And in front of me, there's a person in need, and I'm there to help them. And some people would call that an earth angel, right? But I say that because we are all earth angels to each other when you think about the grand picture. And if everyone can take and adopt that mindset that we're all here to help each other, then it really does become a better place, right? The world becomes a better place instead of this dark place. Like it's more a collective loving place. And I know right now we're in the season of winter around the world. But what I also know is that, as I start the show with, is the only thing that's permanent is our souls. And our bodies, they will at some point pass because they're not meant for us to stay in forever. But our souls are energy, and our energy will leave our bodies at some point. Where you align during your life really does matter. What you do with it matters. How you think and what you're feeding your body and what you're feeding your brain, it all matters. It all counts. And right now, we are in a spiritual battlefield for our souls. And you see it everywhere. You see it on the television. You see it with everything that is around us, with our foods and the technology and all of these things that are happening that we're bombarded with every single day. But here's the thing. If you can look at the things that you have control over and use your discernment to look at those things and make a conscious effort to use them for your highest good. And again, what you're putting into your body, what you're feeding your mind, the music you're listening to, the television, quote unquote, programming that you're watching. If it's not giving you a good feeling, then turn it off. You don't have to watch it. You do have that ability to choose. And right now, like I said, we're in the season of winter, but winter doesn't stay. Just like we started to talk about, we go into spring and we start exploring again, and we start looking for the buds on the trees, and the flowers start to push up out of the ground. But isn't that the most beautiful thing? Because we're constantly going through change, and change is not a straight line. And when we go through change, there is a blessing that comes from it. So use this time as your blessing. Use this time to be your best and highest self and build your relationship, not just with God, but with your fellow people. Really build that. And along the sand, you might find some sea glass. Your favorite color sea glass, perhaps. So there's so much power in finding God. And I love that you're choosing to write stories about that. I love that you're taking the time to guide people into that space. It's so necessary, especially now. So I applaud you. I think this is absolutely incredible that you're doing this.
Thank you.
How did so let me ask you this. So what was the hardest decision you ever had to make?
Ooh, that's a good one. uh, hmm. Oh, I think for me, the hardest decision I've ever had to make was telling my dad that I couldn't be around him anymore. Um, so backstory for this lovely little tale. Um, so my dad, I grew up going to his house on the weekends, and I know that my dad, in his own way, does love me, does care about me, but there were a number of times throughout my childhood where um, there are just different things that he would say that um, would cause me pain. Like he would say it as a joke, kind of like Mother Gothel and Tangled. Oh, I'm just joking, Rapunzel, and everyone else watching is like, no, that is not okay. Like kind of similar thing. And when I would be visibly hurt or try to say something, it's like, oh, stop taking everything so seriously. It's just a joke. Like stop being so sensitive, etc. And various things with that. There were a few pivotal moments that also like contributed to this. So my dad and second stepmom, they argued a lot. They fought a lot, multiple times a day, every day, even on Christmas, about everything under the sun. You know, if you're slicing the tomatoes weird, you know, finances, the dogs, the kids. I need you to like do XYZ chores, like everything. And there was one point I didn't realize how much it was bothering me till I reached a breaking point. And I was like, I can't like keep coming to this house because there's just so much toxicity, there's so much arguing, there's so much fighting. And the thing is they were going to couples counseling for a little while, and that was helping. Like you could see improvement, but then they stopped going because they're like, oh, we don't want people to know we need help. It's like, but everyone needs help. Everyone needs help with something at some point. Um, and when I said, hey, you know, I kind of don't want to come by anymore, he told me that I was to blame for all their arguing and all their unhappiness. And I was like, uh, I'm sorry, what? He said it again a week later when he'd like calmed down and we were having a civilized conversation. And I'll be honest, I had been blaming myself for different problems they're having in their marriage. Like I was buying them, you know, like tapes and sermons and books, so to like try to help them, taking responsibility for a relationship that I had no business taking responsibility for. As an adult, I see that now. As a kid, I was just like, I'm just trying to fix this and make it better. And sorry, I could hear your dog in the background. So he and I kind of sort of moved past that, and I was still like trying to see him on occasion, not as much as before. But because the environment that we were in was so unhealthy, my younger brother, he started acting out. Like one of the differences between my younger brother and I is I will internalize my pain and he will externalize his. So the acting out, the drinking, smoking marijuana, running away from home. He did all of these things, and it was understandable because of the environment that we in. I'm not excusing his behavior by any means. I'm just like anyway. So knowing that he was going through this, and as a big sister, like wondering like what can I do to really help. And my dad's point of view was like, well, you're his sister, you should be there for him, you should be taking care of him, you should be like helping him, blah blah blah. And I was like, he's not my kid, like don't get me wrong, I love my brother, and yes, I want to be there for him because he's obviously going through some stuff, but like it's not my responsibility to bring him out of this. And the way he was presenting it was not sitting well with me. And I talked with my stepdad about it. And he's like, no, no, everything that your brother's going through right now, that is on your dad. That is not on you. That is for him to fix. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm not crazy. Good to know. Um, and, time went on. I probably should have spoken up at that time, been like, no, you can't put my brother on me like the way that you are. Um, but I did that is on me. Fast forward a few more years, and he tells me that he is starting to hang out with this other woman, and they've been getting to know each other, and he's kind of liking her. And fast forward again several months, and he tells me at Christmas Eve, hey, your stepmom and I, we are getting divorced, and my girlfriend, I'm going to bring her to dinner with everyone. She's going to meet the family, and I want you to make her feel welcome. I want, you to be okay with this, blah, blah, blah. And I understood that my dad was not happy in his marriage. I could understand that. But at the same time, I was still holding on to hope that they would reconcile, that they would be okay, that I wouldn't see my parents go through another divorce. Like as a kid, like this is my mindset. I get that they're struggling, but I'm still holding on to hopefully this will work out and this will get fixed. And to have that, like announcement be brought to me, that was a lot. And I took a step back and was like, okay, I need to process this a little bit. A few weeks went by, I was like, okay, he and I are going to talk. We're going to have a conversation. Be two adults. We can do this. I was in my mid-20s at this point, and I had texted him, I was like, hey, can you and I talk? You and I hang out. So we made plans, and the day of, I texted him to confirm our plans. He's like, well, actually, we're going to do this other thing instead, and my new girlfriend's going to come too. I'm like, I was looking forward to just hanging out with you, was my response. He's like, no, we're a package deal, we're both coming. So then I canceled, because yeah, reasons. I was explaining like, hey, this is what we had initially planned. This is what I would like us to do. And he was not respecting that. And this happened multiple times where I would try to get together with them, to try to still have a relationship with him, to try to talk with him about what was going on. And every time we would make plans, he would say, okay, yep, we're good with that. And then the day of, he would change the plans to do something completely different and also include her. And after a while, I was like, I can't keep doing this. Like, I get that you're in this new relationship and you want everyone to support it and be okay with it. I'm still like in a place where like I am grieving the fact that this other relationship is now gone. I realize it's been decaying for a while, but still like the grief's still there. And you are not giving me time to understand. You're not giving me time to accept what is like happening. You are just like trying to shove it down my throat. Now, remember the other things I mentioned before with, oh, our unhappiness is your fault. Oh, you're to blame for your brother failing. This is all your fault. And now this, I'm just like, okay, yeah, I can't do this anymore. So I wrote him a letter. I said, hey, please know that I love you, but I can't continue to be in a relationship with you right now. And he did not appreciate that. And in his response, he told everyone else in the family what a terrible daughter I was and what a horrible Christian I was and how judgmental I was. And it's like, this is not about me trying to judge you. Like, I realize that I live my life a certain way and you don't. And it's not right for me to try to hold you to a standard that you don't understand or recognize. That's not what I'm doing. I am stepping back for my mental and emotional well-being because you have continually showed me that you are not a safe place for me. And so the rest of the family decided, okay, well, we're all going to take his side. And they did not talk to me for like 2 years.
Oh,
Great. It was so wonderful. And like the rest of the family, they like have started to talk with me more, and they're like, hey, you should come and hang out and spend time with us. In my back of my mind, I'm going, I'm sorry. You've shown me what you think of our relationship already, and I'm not angry with you. I'm not over here like throw all the things at them. But that's not, I don't want to build something with you that if someone else has a conflict with me, that you're going to not actually like listen to me, talk with me. You're just going to turn your back. So yeah, it was very, very hard to make that decision to say, hey, I need to take some time back for myself. Like, it is very hard for me to cut ties with people that I care a lot about. Like, you really have to get me to that point, because I will usually stay and stick around past the point where everyone else would give up.
yeah.
And like, I know oftentimes, well, now people are learning like, oh, you have to have boundaries, and if someone's toxic, like, push them away. It's like you have to understand what toxic really means.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we're communicating your needs and they are continually just like ignoring it and not, being honoring to that, that is something to look at and be like, I might need to take a step back. But if it's just like one time that happens, like, y'all talk, y'all work it out. And I'm rambling now, but
You're fine. This is something I think so many people relate to. It's not just you. It's something that we get to a point and we have to recognize that we have to protect ourselves from the hurt, from the pain. And the opposite of blame is not taking personal responsibility. So if you have somebody pointing a finger at you all the time, blaming you, that's not yours to take. That's them not taking personal responsibility. But the fact that you recognize that it's not healthy for you, like, there's so many people. I recently came across a statistic that 40%, I believe it's 40% of people are estranged from their family because of this very thing. And that's why I say it's not just you. It's more common than you think. And unfortunately, there's people that, don't get to a place to recognize that they have to work on themselves and make amends, or there's this mindset that they've done nothing wrong, so they'll go to their grave with that. But you do owe it to yourself to put yourself and love yourself, right, the best possible way, and whatever that means. Sometimes, even if it means you have to put them aside. And I think this is where thank goodness we have discernment, because we actually get to pick people that we can call family. Healthy people, people that are going to love us unconditionally and not put strings attached to every single thing or make us feel bad about something. So, again, it just shows how courageous you are. And no judgment here, but you're very courageous. I I could spend hours talking to you. It's just been amazing. I ask all of my guest speakers when they come onto the show, if I were to find your earth angel feather on the ground and I picked it up, what would your message to the world be?
It's a very good question. My message to the world would be, pain ends and your story can be rewritten.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Thank you so much for your courage, for showing up, for being here, for being so brave, because I honestly can tell you we've talked about things I haven't talked about with anybody else on this show. So I admire your bravery and courageousness to be able to do that. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This has been wonderful.
You're so welcome. And so for all of my listeners out there, this is Catherine Daniels with Retreat to Peace, reminding you to live your authentic life in peace and always retreat to peace. And have a great week, and we'll see you next time.